Mr. President,
Senator from Connecticut.
are we in a quorum call?
We are.
I'd ask that we dispense with the quorum.
Without objection.
Mr. President, in a few moments, we are going to vote on a resolution to end the president's illegal, disastrous war with Iran. We should pass this resolution. This is day 146 of a war that has no achievable objectives and no endgame. A war that has ruined American families as gas prices are back over $4 a gallon, unaffordable for many working-class Americans. We have sky-high diesel and fertilizer prices. We've seen record numbers of farms go into bankruptcy. This is a war that has made Iran stronger, a war that has depleted American munitions so dangerously that we are now exposed without the munitions and interceptors necessary if there was an actual threat posed to the United States elsewhere around the world. This war has been an unmitigated disaster from start to finish. There's a reason why no American president, Republican or Democrat, prior to Donald Trump, began a preemptive war with Iran, because everyone with even scant knowledge of the Middle East knew that a war with Iran was not winnable, knew that it would set off a series of other conflicts in the region that would result in chaos. And that is what we have today. Chaos. Even worse, planned chaos, foreseeable chaos. Every day, as we speak, Iran strikes its neighbors, Israel, Kuwait, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Qatar. Every day, Iran strikes U.S. forces and are basing in the region. They have done billions of dollars worth of damage to our forces and to our partners' forces. Our war against Iran has set off other wars. Israel has invaded Lebanon. In that country, 4,300 people have been killed. 12,000 have been wounded. 1.2 million Lebanese have been displaced from their homes. Let me say this again. The war with Iran has set off another war in which 4,300 people have been killed and 1.2 million people have been displaced from their homes. And this week, a new conflict is breaking out between the Houthis in Yemen and Saudi Arabia. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Iran did not control the strait before the war, but they now effectively control it. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, connecting the Red Sea to global waterways, now appears also closed. And the Houthis, again, another Iranian ally, have started to attack ships there. There are 17 Americans who have died. There are hundreds others who have been wounded. Almost 2,000 Iranian civilians have died, including 250 children. The U.S. has depleted our munitions and interceptor stores to dangerous levels. Over decades, we carefully, methodically built up a stockpile of long-range stealth missiles, mostly in preparation for a possible future conflict with China. You know what percentage of that stockpile has been fired at Iran in 146 days? Not 10%, not 30%, 50%. We have fired half of our entire stockpile of long-range stealth missiles in 4 months. And the situation is even worse for our allies and partners in the region. Reports suggest that the UAE and Kuwait may have burned through 75% of their Patriot missiles just over the last 146 days. This all sounds like a disaster, correct? Like an unmitigated, 5-alarm disaster. But the administration defends this reality. They frankly can't object to the facts that I just laid out. They simply say that this is the cost of a just war. Lives lost, regional chaos, high prices, low stockpiles, taxpayers footing the bill. It's just all worth it because the Trump administration says we are achieving our goals and the goals are worth the price. And here's the most important thing to understand as we approach this vote in a few moments. It's not worth it. Why? Because Trump has not achieved a single war goal. And Trump has no path to achieve any single war goal. All of the cost, all of the chaos, all of the death that I just described is going to be for nothing, because not a single one of these goals is going to be achieved. Now, I will admit the goals have shifted over time. And so on this chart, I am simplifying the set of goals. But the first goal has been articulated many times in different forms by the administration: regime change. In Trump's video announcing the beginning of the war, he says, when we are finished with this campaign, the Iranian people should, quote, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will probably be your only chance for generations. There is also extensive reporting on the plan led by the Israelis, but supported by the United States, to replace the old regime with leaders friendly to the United States and Israel. But here's the reality. Yes, this war has taken out the previous leadership. But what has happened is that the old regime has simply been swapped for a new generation of revolution-era ideologues that are younger, that are more emboldened, and that are less compromising. The new Ayatollah is well known to be a prominent hardliner. He has surrounded himself with other hardliners, leaders of the Quds Force, those with a history of brutal repression of dissidents inside Iran. And they feel emboldened because they have survived this war. They have emerged controlling the country. They've taken America's best shot, and they are still in charge. The president at one point tried to claim that this goal had been effectuated, that because the old Ayatollah is dead and there is a new Ayatollah, by definition, they had succeeded in regime change. All we got is a younger set of leaders who are more confident they can beat the United States and are going to emerge from this conflict more powerful in the region. The second war goal, destroying Iran's military capabilities. Now, the administration, basically as soon as the war began, claimed victory here. On day 14 of this conflict, nearly 5 months ago, the Secretary of Defense said that Iran's military had been destroyed and made combat ineffective. 26 days into the conflict, Vice President Vance declared the Iranian conventional military is effectively destroyed. But with our own eyes, every single day, we can see that that is a lie. As missiles are being fired at our troops and our partners in the region, as wars break out anew each week. According to public reporting in the New York Times and Washington Post, U.S. intelligence suggests that Iran has retained as much as 70% of its pre-war missile stock and 70% of its mobile missile launchers. $100 billion spent, 140 days of war, and we have dented their missile capacity. Along the Strait of Hormuz, where the missiles probably matter the most, a new U.S. intelligence estimate, again, this is open source reporting, says that of the 33 sites, only 3 sites are fully destroyed or inaccessible. 30 missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz are still operational. Military intelligence agencies have also reported that Iran has regained access to 90% of the underground missile storage that we have hit. Iran still has their missiles. They still have their drones. They are rebuilding capacity. We have utterly failed at destroying Iran's military capabilities, and there is no path to success in this war aim. Finally, the third goal, eliminate Iran's nuclear program and ensure that they can never acquire a nuclear weapon. This is, of course, a goal that has been shared by Republicans and Democrats. And as Trump has said, this is the only thing that matters. Secretary Hegseth reiterated several times at the hearing yesterday that the primary objective of the war is now to make sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. But let's just be clear about the facts. According to the IAEA, Iran still has a stockpile of about 970 pounds of highly enriched uranium. That stockpile still exists in the country. Reports suggest that they have moved their highly advanced centrifuges to a place called Pickaxe Mountain and buried them so deep that no airstrike can impact them. And most importantly, because Donald Trump pulled out of the previous nuclear agreement, which had frozen Iran's nuclear research program, Iran has gained the knowledge to enrich uranium up to 60%, which everybody knows is effectively weapons grade. And there's no military strike that can erase that fact. This is a reality that Donald Trump created. Now, Trump's theory is that this military campaign is going to push Iran to the negotiating table, and the result will be a deal, a nuclear deal, that's better than the one that Iran signed. But this is fantasy. There is no world in which Iran, after this war, agrees to more than they agreed to in the JCPOA. And you just can't avoid the facts here. The primary reason is that we will have less leverage in these negotiations than the Obama administration had. Why is that? One, this regime is harder line, less willing to negotiate and compromise than the administration Obama was negotiating with. Second, there is no fear of U.S. airstrikes. That was always a sword of Damocles hovering over the negotiations during the Obama administration. Now Iran knows that they can survive, the regime can survive America's best shot. Our military leverage is just much weaker. And our primary leverage that we had during the Obama administration, the removal of oil sanctions, will not be available to us in these negotiations because we have already demonstrated that those sanctions will be released just to get Iran to reopen the strait. So we won't have the military leverage. We won't have the oil sanctions leverage. We'll be dealing with a regime that is harder line than the one we were dealing with prior. There is no world in which, at the end of this conflict, we are getting a better nuclear agreement than the one that Trump left. Billions of dollars wasted, 18 Americans dead, thousands of civilians and children in the Middle East killed, our military stockpiles dangerously depleted, new wars in the region breaking out by the week, the Strait of Hormuz and possibly the Red Sea now closed, controlled by our enemies, gas prices skyrocketing, the global economy melting down. All of this for what? Nothing. Not a single war objective achieved, not a viable path to achieve any of them in the coming months. This war was a mistake from the start. Everyone except for Donald Trump knew it would be a disaster. It is a disaster, and we have a chance today to vote to end it.
Senator North Dakota.
I rise today in support of Judge Daniel Traynor's nomination to serve on the United States Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit. Judge Traynor is seeking to fill the seat being vacated by Judge Ralph Erickson, who will be taking senior status upon Judge Traynor's confirmation. I want to take this opportunity to thank Judge Erickson for his many years of serving on the bench, whether at the state district court, the federal district court, or as a circuit court judge. Ralph Erickson has been a dedicated public servant, and we thank him for his hard work over the decades. I actually have known him since high school. He was on both the football team and the basketball team, and he's a huge guy. And I remember he was a good lineman. And I remember if he stood in the lane at basketball, you couldn't get anywhere near the basket. You had to kind of shoot a three-pointer. Super guy, great sense of humor, and a good friend. But we'll miss Ralph in terms of his full-time status, but the good news is he'll be on senior status and still involved. And he's just a tremendous judge. And I'm very confident that Judge Traynor will do a fantastic job carrying on his legacy. Today I have the privilege of supporting a nominee in Judge Traynor who embodies the highest standards of judicial service and who's dedicated his professional life to upholding the rule of law. Judge Traynor is a man of integrity, intellect, and a deep faith in our constitutional system. He's earned a reputation as a thoughtful and fair jurist whose commitment to justice is respected by those who know him and those who have appeared before him. Judge Traynor is a lifelong North Dakotan through and through. He was born in Devil's Lake, North Dakota, received his Bachelor of Arts from the University of North Dakota and his Juris Doctorate from the University of North Dakota School of Law. Judge Traynor's roots in our state have shaped his understanding of the law's impact on individuals, on families, on businesses, and on our rural communities. Throughout his career, Judge Traynor has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to public service and to the faithful application of the law. Since his confirmation to serve as judge for the United States District Court for the District of North Dakota, Judge Traynor has distinguished himself through his diligence, impartiality, and careful attention to the facts and law before him. His judicial record reflects a deep respect for the Constitution, an appreciation for the limited role of the judiciary, and a commitment to deciding cases based on the law rather than on his personal opinion or policies. The Eighth Circuit plays a critical role in interpreting and applying federal law throughout our region of the country. The citizens it serves deserve a judge who approaches that responsibility with independence, impartiality, and fidelity to the Constitution and the rule of law. Judge Traynor possesses each of these qualities. He does not legislate from the bench. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Judge Traynor is a devoted husband, father, and member of his community. His wife, Patricia, a retired lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force, along with their 3 children, Mary Mack and Joe, are rightfully proud of what Judge Traynor has accomplished. Yet, he understands the values of hard work, service, and responsibility that are central to the people of North Dakota and the Eighth Circuit. I am proud to support his nomination, and I am confident that he will serve with distinction on the Court of Appeals. For all these reasons, I call on my colleagues to join him in supporting his nomination. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator Maryland.
Mr. President, pursuant to 50 U.S.C. 1546A and in accordance with Section 601B of the International Security Assistance and Arms Export Control Act, I move to discharge the Committee on Foreign Relations from further consideration of S.J. Res. 180.
Clerk will report.
Motion to discharge S.J. Res. 180 from the Committee on Foreign Relations.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that Senator Sheehy be able to speak for up to 5 minutes, that I then speak for up to 20 minutes, and Senator Schumer be permitted to speak for 2 minutes before the scheduled vote.
Without objection.
Mr. President.
The senator from Montana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday we saw the President of the United States and many others at Dover Air Force Base presiding over a ceremony that is very sacred to those of us who served, and that is a dignified return of remains from the war zone. And that process happens beginning in the war zone through Dover to the hometown of our fallen heroes. I participated in many of those ceremonies myself. to include carrying friends of mine off the plane. One of those is on this bracelet. He was cut in half by an Iranian EFP. This regime that we are fighting does not care about our partisan politics. They don't care who you voted for, who you pray to, or where you live. They want to kill all of us. And they don't just say it, they actually do it. And they've been doing it for 47 years. This is a war of choice. The Democrats are correct. It's a war of choice that was begun by a radical, lunatic band of terrorists that took over a beautiful nation 47 years ago. Took it over with brutality, force, and savagery. And the second they took it over, they didn't free their people. They didn't unleash the largest oil reserves in the world to build schools and bridges. They took it over to murder their own people and to spread their disgusting ideology across the world, and that is exactly what they have been doing. They don't just say it and talk about it. You don't have to believe what they say. You can simply watch what they've done. They have attacked families, women, children, innocent people. They don't just attack them and kill them. They rape them. They skin them alive on camera. They celebrate it. They honor those people who do disgusting things that we would put in jail for the rest of their lives in this country. And they do it for fun, and they pay them money to do it, and they're heroes to that nation. They've done it to friends of mine. They've done it to families who've been in this chamber. And the fact that we sit here and listen to elected officials of this country defend these lunatics who want us all dead. They want all of you dead. They want all of us dead. They don't want us to disappear with the snap of a finger. They want us to be raped, burned alive, and cut into pieces. Watch the video from October 7th. That's what they want to happen from Maine to San Diego, from Seattle to Miami. They want this country turned into a burning husk of its former self. And you don't have to theorize that. That's what they do. From the 1983 barracks bombing, where 280 Marines were vaporized in a morning, from USS Cole to the Achille Laurel to every terrorist attack, from the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. These are not humanitarian freedom organizations. They are death-dealing cults, and they want all of us to die brutal deaths. William Buckley was abducted in 1985, an American military officer. He was skinned alive on camera by the Iranians. American prisoners of war who were captured. They were never called prisoners of war because they were captured by lunatic terrorists, so they were not subject to the Geneva Convention. They were captured and murdered, power drills through their brains. This is in Iraq. These are families that have dealt with this, and they've never gotten a single dime. These families have never gotten restitution, and not a single president has ever stood up to them. Love Donald Trump or hate him. Love his policies, hate ICE, love ICE, whatever. There's never been a single president who has stood up to Iran and hit back. For 47 years, our troops and our families have been absorbing attack after attack after attack all over the world. And their radical ideology does not stop at the Persian Gulf. It doesn't stop at Tel Aviv. They want to do this everywhere. It's a global radical ideology. And we've been fighting it for half a century. We didn't start this war. We did not, but we will finish it. And forever wars are not popular with anybody these days. Both sides of that, I love to attack our forever wars. And I can promise you, being someone overseas wearing the uniform, when you're fighting for your country, you don't care what party's in office, but you're fighting to defend your country. And you turn on the news and see your elected officials stabbing you in the back, telling you that you're failing, that you failed every goal of the war, is what I just heard. Last time I checked, we've wiped these bastards out. An occasional missile strike and boats in the straits, that's not military strength. Those are the flailings of a failing empire. Those are the flailings of a nation in collapse because they deserve it. So I encourage our colleagues on both sides of the aisle, whatever's politically convenient, whatever plays well on Twitter or Facebook, think about the people who are deployed right now, standing on that wall with a loaded weapon, who have volunteered to defend our country and our way of life. Because they are there defending us in a just war. Because we did not start a war with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They started it with us 47 years ago, and their attacks have gone unanswered for half a century. It's time to fix this problem and make sure another generation of Americans does not have to fight this murderous, savage adversary. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
Mr. President, I want to start thanking Senator Sheehy for his service to our country in our armed forces, and thank every single soldier who serves our country in uniform, and mourn the deaths of every single American service member who has been lost in this war and any other war. I listened carefully to the senator from Montana. He's right that the Iranian regime doesn't care about what's happening in the United States, doesn't care about politics in the United States. You know what else they don't care about? They don't care about the Constitution of the United States of America. They don't care about that either, but we in this Senate, we should care about the Constitution of the United States of America, because the framers of our Constitution deliberately vested the power to declare war in Congress, because they understood the enormous consequences of sending Americans into harm's way. So if our Republican colleagues have the strength of their convictions, they should bring an authorization to use military force in Iran to this floor. We've not seen that. In 140 days, we've seen nothing. If you want to be true to the Constitution of the United States, that's what Republicans would do. And the Iranians don't give a damn about our Constitution. But I would hope that those in this body who've been sworn to uphold it would give a damn about our Constitution. Because the framers understood. They understood that decisions involving war and peace should not rest with any one individual. You can glorify President Trump all you want, but the founders, those who helped write the Constitution, understood that that power should not vest with one person, whoever that person may be, regardless of prior party. That's what the founders said. The Constitution entrusted that solemn responsibility to the Congress, where the elected representatives could openly debate and vote on those questions before any president sent our sons and daughters to fight and die in foreign lands. We may disagree about whether this is a good idea or a bad idea, but we should not disagree that that is what the Constitution requires and that is what our oath requires. So, Mr. President, yes, I rise to urge my colleagues to support my War Powers Resolution to end this disastrous and illegal war against Iran that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu launched over 140 days ago. The Constitution is unambiguous. This is not a close call. And yet, right now, we are finding ourselves confronting exactly the circumstances that the Constitution and the War Powers Resolution of 1973 were designed to prevent. They were designed to prevent one person from taking this country to war. They were actually designed in hopes that this Senate and this Congress would do their constitutional duty and vote yes or no, but take responsibility for decisions that send our men and women into harm's way. Take responsibility. Nearly 5 months ago, President Trump launched this illegal war. He launched it against Iran, and as I said, he launched it without any authorization. Since then, Senate Democrats and some Republicans have tried to reassert the constitutional role of Congress. We have voted 11 times on resolutions to end the war. And finally, last month, both chambers passed House Concurrent Resolution 86, directing the president to terminate hostilities against Iran. It was a historic vote. It marked the first time since the War Powers Resolution was enacted in 1973 that Congress successfully used this mechanism that was designed to halt the unauthorized use of force by a president, by any president. That resolution was not a suggestion. It is legally binding. The Iranian regime may not care about that resolution, but we should care, and the Constitution requires that we care. The passage of that resolution should have marked the end of this disastrous war. But time and again, President Trump has shown he has no respect for the Constitution. He was asked months ago whether he had to abide by the Constitution. His answer? I don't know. That is a president who has no respect for the rule of law. But we should. Instead, what the Trump administration has done is steadily expanded this conflict, moved farther away from diplomacy and farther away from a durable peace. When the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran was signed in June, I stood on this floor and said I hoped it would become the foundation for a broader diplomatic settlement. Many of my Republicans opposed that Memorandum of Understanding. I hoped that it would finally begin the long task of climbing out of the big hole this illegal war has created. That hope is gone now. Mr. President, this moment we're in now is a pivotal one in the war and for our role in it. Just this morning, the House of Representatives passed another resolution to end the war. That's how democracy works. The Iranian regime doesn't care about our democracy, but we should. And the Senate should pass this resolution just as the House passed a war powers resolution. This is the first war powers resolution since the United States resumed daily strikes against Iran, and the first since we reimposed a full naval blockade. It's the first resolution since another 4 American soldiers were killed. It's the first resolution since shipping in the Strait of Hormuz has once again been ground to a halt. And I think all of us here in the Senate know the Strait of Hormuz was open before President Trump launched this war. In the weeks since the last vote, more civilians have been killed as well. And the United States and Iran are now deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure. President Trump said that he will destroy a bridge or a power plant in Iran for every ship attacked in the Strait. It did not have to be this way. Many of us warned before this war began that military force would not achieve the vague, constantly shifting objectives its advocates promised. We warned that abandoning diplomacy would make the region more dangerous, not less. We warned that military action would strengthen the most hardline voices inside Iran rather than weaken them. We warned that this conflict would destabilize the region, threaten the global economy, drive up costs for American families, and ultimately leave the United States worse off. And Mr. President, since then, every single one of those warnings has come true. I wish they hadn't, but they have. Mr. President, we've heard the arguments warmongers have used to justify this stupid war before. The promises of quick victories. Just one more bombing campaign would finally produce lasting peace. We've heard that regime change is just around the corner. We've heard repeated calls for military adventurism while diplomacy was dismissed as some kind of weakness. Those arguments were wrong before, and they are wrong today. This is the same kind of delusional thinking that sucked the United States into endless wars in the past. The kind of endless wars that this president promised he would keep us out of. When he promised he would focus on bringing down prices, he's done the opposite. So, Mr. President, we must make better choices, and we cannot allow the past to repeat itself. But that's what happens when your objectives keep changing. That's what happens when you convince yourself, against all available evidence, that just one more week or one more month of fighting will bring victory. You know, on March 1st, the day after starting the war, President Trump was asked how long the war would go on. Does anybody remember what he said? 4 to 5 weeks. It'll be over in 4 to 5 weeks, he said. Well, the president said that about 20 weeks ago. And it was all a lot of nonsense. In late March, he repeatedly claimed victory. President Trump said, "We won, go look it up." It's all over his social media channels. We won, we won. Colleagues, I have some questions. If we won back in March, why are more Americans getting killed in July? If we won back in March, why is the Strait of Hormuz closed? If we won back in March, why is the war expanding as Houthis attack ships transiting the Bab el-Mandeb Strait into the Red Sea? If we won back in March, why are oil and gas prices and diesel prices shooting through the roof again, imposing costs on every American family? Is that their definition of winning? Well, I wondered what their answer to that question was. So earlier this week, I asked Secretary of Defense Excerpt what his definition of winning looks like. And there was no clear answer. And that's because their objectives keep changing. He finally settled on the objective of making sure Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. But colleagues, remember this. Just last year, shortly after Operation Midnight Hammer, the 12-day war, here's what Secretary Hegseth told the country, and I quote, "Our bombing campaign obliterated Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons," unquote. The president told us the same thing. And the president's head of Director of National Intelligence testified in this Senate just months ago that it was the assessment of the U.S. government that Iran did not intend to restart any enrichment program. The president, during the time the Memorandum of Understanding was in place, hailed the fact that the Iranians said they had no plans and would not build a nuclear weapon. Apparently, the president had not been informed that they had made that commitment over a period of years. The whole purpose of the JCPOA was to hold them to that commitment, to make sure that we could identify immediately if they were violating that commitment. Of course, that's the agreement that President Trump tore up in his first administration. But so when I pointed all this out to Secretary Hegseth, all he could go back was to tired old talking points that has gotten us into this mess and keeps us in this mess. In fact, it clarified the reality of what we've known since day one, that the Iran war is a war in search of a mission. And Mr. President and colleagues, that's how forever wars begin. 18 American service members have lost their lives. Hundreds more have been wounded, including over 100 just from the last 2 weeks. And the civilian death toll continues to rise. At the start of the war, an American Tomahawk missile strike killed more than 150 Iranian civilians in Minab, more than 100 of them children. On top of those killings of school kids, thousands of other civilians have been killed or injured across Iran, Lebanon, Israel, and the rest of the region. And on top of all that, oil prices jumped. Then they settled a little bit during the Memorandum of Understanding, and now they're jumping again. They've risen back to a national average of around $4 a gallon and rising. Diesel prices have surged above $5 a gallon. All of us understand that when gas and diesel prices go up, those increased costs filter throughout the economy. Trucks that are trucking food from one place to another, higher diesel prices, higher food prices, higher grocery prices throughout our economy, imposed on families already struggling with the costs of groceries and housing and health care and child care and other necessities. And again, this is the president who said that he was going to end wars and focus on bringing down costs. This is a strategic blunder on a massive scale. It's a self-inflicted wound on our country, and all for what? That is the question every one of us should be asking as we vote shortly on this war powers resolution. How has continuing this war made the American people safer? How has it made the Middle East more stable? How has it strengthened America's national security? I have yet to hear a credible answer to that question, and that's because there isn't one. You know, Mr. President, these are the kind of questions that should be asked before a war is started, before we put American troops at risk. Colleagues, there is no good way out of a bad war. But as I've said repeatedly, when you're digging yourself a hole, the first thing you should do is stop digging. And that's what this resolution seeks to do. Let us stop pretending that Congress has no role to play while American service members remain in harm's way. Many of the people who enthusiastically supported launching this war have been unwilling to take responsibility for authorizing it. That should concern every member of this body. It should concern every American, regardless of party. Because if a member of the Senate truly believes that this war is justified and the right thing to do, put it up for a vote. Put it up for a vote for an authorization to use military force. I disagreed with the decision to go to war in Iraq. President Bush asked for an authorization for military force, and this Congress acted on it. In my view, they made the wrong decision, but at least they took responsibility for their actions as the Constitution requires. So, Mr. President, this is an opportunity as the war escalates even further, as more American service members are killed, as more civilians are killed, as oil and gas prices and other prices go up. This is an opportunity for this Congress to finally take responsibility. We passed a concurrent resolution in the past. We know the president has no respect for the law, but we have an obligation to our constituents. We should not duck that responsibility. We should not simply allow this war to go on without up or down votes on an authorization to use military force. And today we have a chance to take accountability and send a message by supporting this war powers resolution. I urge all my colleagues to adopt it, and I yield the floor.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, Trump got America into this mess in Iran, and he's made it clear he's both unwilling and unable to get us out. For the sake of our service members, their families, working people from one end of the country to the other who are getting crushed by higher costs and gas prices, Senate Republicans need to join us and end Trump's war in Iran. People across the aisle know, most everyone here knows, what a fiasco this war has been. Well, now we need a little courage and strength to end it. And we need to get our Republican colleagues to step up to the plate and do what they know deep in their hearts is the right thing to do. How many service members will die before Senate Republicans decide this war needs to end? How many of our troops will be wounded before Senate Republicans find a spine? How many times will Democrats have to force a vote on our war powers resolution to bring our troops home before Senate Republicans join us? And they're going to have to vote on it again and again and again until they join us in ending this war. Every time Republicans oppose our war powers resolution and vote against ending this war, they lose the faith of the American people. Senate Republicans keep trying to protect Donald Trump, but it's our men and women in uniform whose lives are in danger they should be protecting. Senate Republicans know how dearly this war is costing the American people, gas $4 a barrel, crude oil over $100, families shelling out hundreds if not thousands of dollars in extra costs on basic goods. But Senate Republicans just want everyone to be calm and carry on. But the American people are not calm. They don't like this war. Democrats, Republicans, independents. So Senate Republicans need to wake up, not next week, not next month, now. Now's the time to wake up, to Republicans. Now is not the time to keep bending the knee to Donald Trump as he dizzies himself, running around in circles, chasing his own tail. It's time to stand up for the American people and declare in one voice this war cannot and must not go on. Every member of the Senate, whatever your politics, ought to be in arms over this war, its lack of direction, its lack of conclusion, its lack of consistency. Every single senator ought to support our resolution to end this war. We will keep forcing votes until Senate Republicans stop playing dumb and summon up the courage to do what is right. I yield the floor and ask for the yeas and nays. Yeah.
Is there a second? Appears to be. Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Alsop-Brooks, Mr. Armstrong, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy.